It's 1974. Gary Gygax and his friends are sitting in their basement in front of sheets of paper and cardboard protector. It's 1974. Gary Gygax and his friends are in their basement playing a game that we now know as Dungeons and Dragons. Now, what exactly is Dungeons and Dragons, and why do so many people care? I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for 10 years. I was a player in at least 10 of those campaigns that I played in and participated in, and I was a dungeon master for 5 of those. And we'll get into a little bit what a dungeon master is in a moment. But this game is something that has kind of become a modern sensation, especially with the rise of Critical Role, Big Bang Theory, the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves. There's been a lot of things that have kind of brought it out into from its distance past of being more of a closet nerd hobby to now a mainstream activity. Now, how do you play Dungeons and Dragons? Dungeons and Dragons, at its core, is what we call a cooperative storytelling role-playing game. Those are a lot of words, so we'll break it down. So, a cooperative storytelling experience. That means, unlike writing a book, you come together with several other people at a minimum of 2, and you come up with a story together. So you have the dungeon master, which is basically the narrator slash the person who is in charge of being everybody else in the world and telling everyone what it looks like and how they are interacting with it. And the players then respond to the stimuli and also tell and put their input into how the story forms, which kind of gets into the role playing game aspect, which means they take on a character and play that character and try to think and act and do things as they would and not just as themselves. Now, D&D is really simple in a lot of ways. There's not much to actually bring to the table. There's the character sheet, which has your numbers and your information and stats so that you can attack, do things, whatever, what have you. And there are also books that are supplemental as current. This game is owned by Wizards of the Coast, who is the one who brings out these products. And those can help players and dungeon masters create their characters and their worlds. There's also things called modules that dungeon masters can use that allow them to have a world in front of them that they can follow step by step and create and follow these instructions to give their players an experience. An example of how you would play is you need to make sure you have a random number generator, which could be dice. Unfortunately, I don't have any of my dice with me right now, but that just adds an element of randomness. And for example, I, the dungeon master, could say, you run into a river and you need to cross, and it's quite a large river. What do? A player could say, I want to try to swim across. So the dungeon master would call for a roll, as in make a dexterity or athletics check. So they look at their character sheet, then they find out where their dexterity or athletics is. They then roll their number generator, which in this case could be a dice with 20 sides, or a d20 as we call it in the D&D community. Then they add their stats to that number that they rolled on the dice, and they either succeed or fail, determined by the dungeon master. And there are other examples of this. That's kind of more of a situation example. There are also opportunities where you fight monsters and other beings, like bad guys. And in those situations, it's very similar. You take your dice, you take your pen, your paper, you roll, and you interact with the dungeon master. And it's constantly a cooperative storytelling experience. Now, in the early days, it used to be played more by people who were in their 40s and males, but nowadays, according to Corliss's article for D&D stats, it's now 60% male, 40% female. And it's amazing to me that this game that started in somebody's basement is now something played by several millions of people in basements, game stores, everywhere, online. That's a great resource that you can go to if you want to try this really cool game, especially if you don't have a local game store to go to. Now, according to Nowalski's article and a D&D player, D&D is one of the only things pulling people together right now and gives you faith in your fellow human being and allows you to enjoy their company in an organized way. So perhaps maybe you now want to try D&D. Good luck and roll well.